All right, let's just walk you through where we are. We've talked extensively about the Rays, the hurricane damage, Tropicana Field, the proposal to build a brand new stadium on the other side of the bridge in St. Petersburg. It would have funding from the owner, Stu Sternberg. It would then have, obviously, funding from the city and from the county. They finally had agreed to this is how we're going to do it. And then the hurricanes hit, and the hurricanes destroyed Tropicana Field. Now the Rays had no place to play, and they shopped and they looked as to where they should go. Baseball ran interference for them and convinced the Steinbrenners and the Yankees, you will allow them to use your Class A stadium, Legends Field, Steinbrenners Field, to play all their home games. So the Rays are moving out there. They're going to play this year in a minor league ballpark that'll be kind of glitzy, but it's outside. It's Tampa. That's heat, humidity, and a lot of rain. They had a lot of rain in the evenings on the Sun Coast. So that's a problem. Then, because of the hurricane damage in Tropicana, St. Petersburg and Pinellas County said, whoa, we don't know that we can fund everything that we had initially agreed to because we got to fix the water projects and infrastructure because of all the hurricane damage in our community. And we might be delayed even in funding the repairs through the insurance company at Tropicana Field. And now suddenly the Rays are just really up in arms. So a week ago, Stuart Sternberg said, I am backing out of the new stadium because instead of a 2-year construction project, it'd be 3. And part of the agreement was the Rays would be on the hook for cost overruns. And they are talking that the Rays contribution would have gone from $600 million to maybe $1 billion because of the year delay. So now there's a problem there. Then baseball exerted pressure. Baseball came back and said, if you're going to renege on this deal in St. Petersburg, there is pressure from other owners that you should sell this team because you can't fund it or won't fund it properly. Sternberg says, I'm going back. We're going to play at Legends Field. And then over the weekend, Sternberg announced a new idea. Let's just renovate Tropicana. While you're doing all the renovation with the new roof, let's do all this other renovation. We'll pay 1/3 of the renovation. St. Pete put money in. Pinellas County put money in. Let's just do $600 million renovations to Tropicana. We'll sign a 10-year lease extension. At this point, a lot of people don't want to do business with Sternberg because in St. Petersburg, it just was not a new dome stadium. It's called the Gas Plant District. It's an entertainment district. It's business offices, $6.5 billion total project, as well as the baseball stadium. Now, St. Petersburg said, we're not going to help you. Going back to Tropicana Field makes no sense. That thing is an absolute disaster with Tampa. Briefly, Colorado Rockies. I knew this was coming. Owners are starting to drop hints that we're going to go to the negotiating table with the union. And Tony Clark sits across the table from us, and we're going to have to get a salary cap. And the latest to stand up and say, I'm in, is Dick Monfort, the cheap owner of the Colorado Rockies, who's going to have one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. And he doesn't spend. And he's got a regional franchise that once upon a time drew $4 million. But he's the latest, put his hand up, said, I'm one of the 6 or 7 that are going to sit at that table, and we're going to demand we have a salary cap in baseball. And then there's the Yankees. This is a disaster in waiting. The Yankees have just not only lost Garrett Cole, the Yankees are down 5 pitchers of the group of 9 or 10 they were going to thought would be there on opening day. They just lost another starter. Clark Schmidt, who was supposed to be the 3rd starter, he's out, maybe on the DL. He's re-injured his shoulder. So that comes on the heels of losing Garrett Cole and then losing Luis Gil, the Rookie of the Year last year, with a lat injury. The Yankees are in such trouble. And by the way, Hal Steinbrenner has indicated our payroll's at 304. We're not going any higher. Brian Cashman has no way to get pitching in here at this date unless he gives away the marquee guys in his farm system. So Yankees, all of a sudden, Yankees are in a real world of hurt. Okay, so I walked you through everything on the Sun Coast. Give me a comment on that. Give me a comment on the cheapo owner in Colorado. And are you laughing and just scowling at the Yankees and say you guys deserve it, or you feel sad for them?
As far as the Yankees go, we were saying the same thing about the Dodgers last year, weren't we? About all these pitching injuries, and they were going to lose their top 5 starters, and they ended up winning the whole darn World Series. So I don't know. I'm not too worried about the Yankees. None of those guys. Garrett Cole's out for the year, but everyone else, it's just kind of a minor setback.
Yeah,
right?
but there's no Soto either.
Yeah,
it's like Aaron Judge against the world.
Oh yeah, no Anthony Rizzo either.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's something. Well, it's the Yankees, and the good news is the American League is a little bit easier than the National League. Dick Monfort is a disgrace. He's one of the worst owners in Major League Baseball. He always whines about this. He was whining, I think, when the Dodgers signed Shohei Ohtani, because it made him look bad into his fans.
Rightfully so.
Yeah. So, that guy is a piece of work. So he hasn't really made, in my opinion, significant investments in that team. I mean, the last one was Chris Bryant, and that went nowhere.
He's healthy right now. They do have a lot of kids, but the problem is they have a lot of kids. They have all these named pitchers. All of them are coming off surgeries. So far, so good, but who knows whether the effective opening day, whether they can stay in the rotation. And it's a regional franchise. They drew $4 million back in the Matt Holliday era. And by the way, Matt Holliday still has not touched home plate against the Padres. But that's a regional franchise. There could be a raving success, and this guy won't fund it correctly.
Yeah, and yeah, he's a problem. And by the way, wouldn't you have really mixed feelings if you were one of those elite, prospective pitchers in their organization? Because you don't want to have your career as a pitcher at Coors Field.
What? You're getting psycho about a 7.95 ERA?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so they go to die there. I remember a long time ago, Billy Swift went there, and everyone thought, hey, maybe a sinker will really work or won't work there.
Flat.
It would go flat. Exactly. Because you always think about the home run. You don't think about how it affects the pitching.
But that's the place where, wasn't it Hideo Nomo threw a no-hitter?
Yeah.
Coors Field?
Yeah, he did.
How's that possible?
That's ridiculous, but Will Myers went to cycle there. So there's been in the 90s, the Rockies were great. When they had Dante Bichette.
It's a 4 million attendance market, and you got this guy nickel and diming him.
Yeah, he's a problem. So
what do you know about Tampa?
Doesn't this sound like you're like a really blah decision to go back to the original stadium, fix it up a little bit? I mean, that just takes all the pizzazz out of it, and you're still kind of stuck on the other side of the bridge, right?
Exactly.
So I don't know if this really it works. I mean, to me, Tampa, I think, should consider moving that franchise.
Manfred does not want to move it. He thinks the Suncoast should still be a great market. They just don't have great ownership or ownership that's got deep pockets that's willing to do it correctly. It's odd. The product in the field's been good. Their farm systems have developed a lot of really good players. Andrew Friedman, Dodger president, CEO, much hated as he is, he came from Tampa.
Well, wasn't Derek Jeter part of the ownership, or what was the deal there?
Yeah, he was there, and then he got removed. No, that was in Miami.
Oh, that was Miami. You're right.
Okay, which is another shabby ass operation.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm trying to think in my head who the ownership is of Tampa.
Stuart Sternberg.
So, okay, I'm not familiar. I mean, we've been talking about him with the whole stadium thing.
I think,
but he's been the owner for a long time.
Yeah, I don't know if it's been a decade, and they've had success. But now he's got the stadium crisis, and he says, "I can't fund this." Okay. Maybe baseball should do an intervention and get somebody else in there.
Well, you don't want to have a festering problem like when the Nationals or the Expos had no home. Now you got the A's with their kind of, globetrotter thing going on.
They have not solved the situation in Tampa. Stay tuned. We'll see what is next. I kind of walk through each of the layers of that storyline. So that's all things baseball as the season gets started.